Welcome to episode 90 to Witches Camino. Basically, this is a series of check-ins in which we recount the joys and challenges of walking the Camino de Santiago to the end of the world. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Witchy Wit podcast, where we look at life through a witchy lens. I'm Kimberlyn.
I'm Leilani.
At Witchy Wit, we explore current events,
Ideas,
music and books,
and experiences in ways that recognize energy and life in everybody and everything.
We are both real witches.
And we bring two real perspectives through the lens of our different ages,
Races,
and backgrounds.
with a healthy skepticism for what we have been told is true. Our conversations are raw, candid, and vulnerable.
Join us as we cast a spell to uncover what we each know is true in our intuitive, witchy selves.
Welcome to our first Camino Primitivo check-in for Witchy Wit.
This is for days 1 through 5 out of 17.
And we're pretty excited to share some of our experiences with you.
So before we get started with our individual experiences, I just wanted to set the scene that we have gone from Oviedo to Grado. This is all in Spain. And then from Grado to Salas. Then from Salas to Tineo. And then from Tineo to Pola de Allende. And lastly, from Pola de Allende to Berdicedo. And each of those is considered a stage, and total with all of those 5 stages put together, we've walked a total of 85.86 miles.
Yay! Of course, it's a little bit more because there's stuff happening before and after the official mileage, but yay! So, shall we talk about it?
Let's start checking in a little bit.
Oh, so first of all, I just wanted to mention that when we got into, our flight, there was a little bit of delay, but generally our flight in was wonderful. And we got into Oviedo, checked into our hotel, went out to see where the cathedral was and where we thought we were supposed to get our credencia, get our first stamp, and then had dinner. And
the dinner was delicious. It was in Cider Alley, or as they pronounce it in Asturias, Sidre.
Sidre. Mm-hmm.
And we had been traveling, and I had not been eating because we had been traveling, and I had too much cider on an empty stomach, and I couldn't feel my lips.
Giggly, and she was very giggly. Yeah, she couldn't feel her lips. I remember you saying that.
It's like, I need food because I can't feel my lips.
But it was wonderful, and on the way there and back, we saw our first scallop shell. They're bronze or brass or whatever, and they're placed right in the sidewalk, right in the street. So it was super, super, super cool.
It was really cool to see that. We took a picture with our feet on the, there's a bronze plaque on the ground where it shows the Camino del Norte, or they were calling it the coastal route, separating from the Primitivo because they cross over at that cathedral. And so we have a picture of our feet there as the skidding started, and then we turned left and there was that shell.
Yes.
And it was really cool.
Yeah, very, very much so. So would you like to talk a little bit about our experience walking?
Yeah, so we're basically spending like most of our day, if not all of our day, walking. It's just
some of us are spending more of the day than others.
Do you want to share a little bit?
Yeah. So I think on our first day we set out, and then I think I can't remember exactly what happened. I think you were taking pictures or something, and I went ahead because I have to stop. There's a lot of hills, lots and lots and lots of hills, and I have to take them slowly. And then somehow there was an alternate route that one of us took and the other one didn't. And I kept wondering, why is she like blowing past me? Why hasn't she caught up? But she hadn't caught up because she was on a different route.
Yes.
So
a little detour.
Yes, a little detour. And we eventually caught up with each other. But that was just the beginning of many days of us just walking separately. Because Leilani, I was going to say something else. Leilani walks fast, and I don't. and I'm good. I'm slow and steady. But then we have the hills, and the hills are my biggest challenge because, just going up in terms of conditioning, but then coming down, the footing is just so, I don't want to call it treacherous, but it's just really it's unsure, and there's rolling stones and pebbles, etc. So I have to take it super slowly. But with the trekking poles, I don't know if I could have done it without trekking poles. They are the answer, my friends. I think I'm going to be using those like in the States, going to like the laundromat or going to school or something, because they were wonderful.
Yeah, trekking poles and our bag courier service are the things, are my two, like, yes please.
Yes please. Oh, when we decided to do that, that was the best part of the Camino. I mean, the best part of our planning for the Camino, in my opinion.
But here's the thing about speed. Like, today I was trekking along thinking I was like kicking ass on my speed. I'm like, I am like really like at a high pace, and I'm feeling good. And then like these two older people, both silver haired, like blow past me. like not a slow, like they slowly come on and then they slowly pass me. I'm talking like, psh.
Oh yeah.
They're just like going. And yeah,
it's humbling, isn't it?
It's yeah. And not that it's a competition, because it isn't. And whatever, like, whatever way we get through it, no judgment. Except maybe I'm a little judging myself a little bit because I'm like, damn. Yeah. I get that feeling all the time because because everybody's blowing past me. And what's so funny is often it's on those downhills where I literally creep. If it would take Leilani maybe say 5 minutes, it's going to take me 30 minutes. It's just, I literally creep like I'm almost an invalid, just because I'm so insecure about it. And people just like ching 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 ching. They're just like the story with the guy with the 10-league boots or whatever, just like bam bam bam, and they always stop. And so the first Spanish that I really became good at was estoy bien, solo lenta, which is basically I'm fine, I'm just slow. Because everyone would stop and say, "Are you okay?" So anyway, so we are okay. We're just going at our own pace. Although sometimes I haven't thought I was okay.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
By the time we roll into town, or walk into town,
or waddle into town,
I'm literally waddling. Some days when I lay on my back, I can't even bring my knees past 90 degrees because I'm so sore, and it's my calves and my calves and like the insides of my thighs and my ankles and the bottoms of my feet hurt. But I definitely have noticed developing some endurance. I have thought about quitting. The day I got my period, I was really considering quitting. But I think it was more of my period talking to me believing the lies that my period says, because I was vulnerable. Normally, whenever I am on my period, I can remind myself that it's lies, and I'm not so vulnerable to it. But I think I was really vulnerable about 2 days ago, but I didn't quit.
I remember a text from you, and I think I responded, deceptive periods or something.
Yes.
Deceitful periods.
They are. It is deceitful.
They're deceitful. So one other thing I'd like to mention is just how accepting and friendly the people are here, even with our poor Spanish, or I reference, even with my poor Spanish. And and one of the things that is so funny will be, I'm trekking along, and someone will shout out something at me, and I look at them, and they're like waving their arms because I'm going in the wrong direction. So they're very helpful about getting you back on track.
I've had them just like whistle or yell, and I turn around and then they point in the different direction, and which I just take as the correct way, or Peregrino, and then they point, and then I go. Yeah. So because I've definitely gone astray a few times. One time I ended up in a quarry.
Oh, you're right. I remember you saying that. Yes,
and then when I went out of the quarry, I realized that I had blown past both an arrow pointed in the correct direction and a sign that said no entrar.
Because you're like trucking.
I was trekking with my head down. I was going uphill, head down, just going at it, and I missed the sign. The very large signs. and the clear like peeling off
I do
of the
remember
road.
that.
It was not hidden.
Yeah, I do remember that. Of course, I'm passing it like three or 4 hours later, but I do remember that spot. Yeah. So, shall we talk about some of our favorite moments or favorite things we've seen?
I think so, because I think we could talk like for hours and hours.
Yeah.
But maybe let's just till we do these check-ins. Maybe let's say out of the first 5 stages, what is a favorite thing that we've seen, and then later on we'll check in about a moment.
Okay. So one of the favorite things I've seen, I've fallen in love with these Asturian brown cows. They are gorgeous. They have these caramel colors, and then they have black curly tails and black like hindquarters in some cases, and there's some usually black or dark brown, and sometimes there's dark brown, and they just have the most soulful eyes, and they are like chewing their cuds and looking at you with these big, huge brown eyes that are seeing right through me. Anyway, so I'm having a moment with my cows, and then I hear behind me, and there's this bull. Thank you for the sound effects. And there's this bull racing down, and I'm trying to decide. Okay, like literally down the road, the path behind me.
So you're not like in the pasture. You're not like in the field.
No, I'm not in the field. I'm just literally on the Camino path, and I'm trying to decide: do I dive? I'm closest to the left, which is where the cows are, and also the barbed wire. And he might be heading for the cows. So I started inching off to the right, and he barreled right past me, and then right behind him barreled this man in a car, like screaming at the bull, who gets to his ladies. Oh, I should have said there was about 3 cows with their calves there, and he gets to his ladies and he stops. So that is one of the most like funny but gorgeous but hilarious but beautiful scenes that I've seen. What about you?
I find that it's a fun tale to tell because you survived.
Well, yeah. This could have gone south so quickly, but
yeah. I think my favorite thing that I've seen is that every day in our stage 1 through 5, as we go through the Asturian region, is all of the water.
Oh my gosh!
And I love water, but everything from walking past on that detour, whenever you and I got separated on the first day, I walked by a river, like down like rocks, like I was on in the riverbed that was flowing. It was beautiful. There's all these springs that will flow, and either we'll walk right over them, or there's bridges because they're large enough. They're like little wooden bridges that go over them, and fountains, which is just like really beautiful to see these fountains that were so important to these small villages where they could get their water. And there was even one where I think it was yesterday or the day before, so it was like on stage 3 or 4. I was walking with some people, and there was a fountain off to the side, and it was covered, like had a roof over it, and the top of the fountain like went inward, like down and inward, and it was ribbed. And the person that I was walking with, we were looking at it, and we were wondering, like, I wonder if it's for washing clothes.
Oh, yeah.
Because you wash it and the water goes down. So
some of them do have tanks that they say, you can see the sign that says for the peregrinos to wash themselves.
Yeah, so just all of the water, from rivers to creeks to streams. I mean, I feel like a ding dong every time, because I'm walking and I just stop to look at the water, and people will pass me, and I'm like, it's so beautiful, and they're like, yeah, and they keep walking. But I'm like just looking at it in awe.
And the sounds of it too.
The sounds of it
so
too. Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely beautiful. Okay, so that's my favorite thing I've seen. What about a favorite moment?
Oh, my favorite moment happened last night. Yeah, going into Borres. Like I said, there's these hills, and I think my conditioning's gotten better because I don't have to stop as much. But I was climbing this really steep hill into Borres, and so you're climbing this hill, and I've just come through mud and all this kind of stuff, and right at the top of the hill there's a bar, and of course there's these people coming out of the bar, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, please let me last, please don't make me stop and sucking in air. And so I keep going, I power through. As I get up to the top, they start cheering and they start clapping, and they were like, shaking their hand, shaking hands, and it was just, I got a standing ovation. It was amazing, and they were just so sweet. And they were just really cheering me on, and that just made my day.
I think that goes back to how friendly everybody seems to be. It doesn't matter what country you're from, or how much or how little Spanish you speak, or if you're lost or not. It's everybody, whether they're one of the people walking or the people that live along the path, just seem to be very friendly.
I think so too. What about you? What was your favorite moment?
My favorite moment actually happened today, where I crested the steepest ascent of the entire path that we're walking, and it was 600-meter ascent.
Damn. Oh, was this the Aldo de
Yes.
Mujeres?
Yeah. Yeah. So I went up the ascent, and I got to the top, and I was standing there, and it was so foggy that I couldn't see very far around me. And then the fog would kind of dissipate for a moment, and I could see the tips of the mountains piercing through the fog that filled the valleys. And so I was like, oh, this is so beautiful. Like, wow, and it's like silent except for the wind. So I pull out my phone and I start taking some pictures of like the mountaintops all around me. And then I hear a neighing from the fog. And so I froze, because I had heard from some of the locals that there were wild horses, but there were also like domesticated horses. But the domesticated horses are in fields, and they normally have collars, or they're branded, or they have tags. And then the wild horses would not have those things and not be in like a fenced in field. But everything's so foggy I can't see, so I just freeze, and I'm standing there, and then the fog is like wrapped around me, and then through the fog I see this horse walk out of the fog.
Oh my gosh.
And so I like look at it and I freeze, because these animals are beautiful, but they're big.
Yeah,
and
big.
so
and wild.
Yes, and so I just freeze. And then as I'm holding my phone up, because I was taking pictures of the mountains, and then through the fog comes another 2 horses, and then a little baby colt, and then another horse, and then they start walking, and they're not walking towards me, because I happen to be where they were walking, but I'm standing where they're walking, and I'm standing on the path, and then you just slowly start walking across the path to the other side, and I'm really bad with probably less than 2 meters away from me. They walked by, and I just froze, because I'm like literally in it now.
Yeah.
So, but hearing them and seeing them, and then I start sobbing, but because it's so beautiful, but I'm like trying not to sob loudly, because I don't want to spook them. So I'm just like standing there with my phone up, and then I'm like, dink, press record, because I don't want to move.
Right.
But it was just such a treat. And I definitely took it as the universe offering me a moment after I had such hard days, with soreness and my thinking that I wasn't cut out for this. So it was just a real treat.
Beautiful.
It was beautiful.
Hey.
So overall it's been a challenge. It's been
Boy howdy.
beautiful moments, challenging moments where I'm using a lot of 4-letter words.
Moments when we're doubting our decision.
Yes. Yeah. And then moments where I'm like, oh my God, there's no place else. Like, we're sitting in the back of our, the place where we're staying, and we're surrounded by the mountains that we've just crossed, and there's like fog, like almost rolling over them. Like it does in plays whenever they like turn on the fog machine and the fog rolls out. So. And
we'll probably post a couple of our pictures on our Patreon site.
Yes.
So we'll let you know when those are up.
And then we'll be doing a couple other check-ins and then a wrap-up. So thanks for joining us for this first one. Okay.
It's witchy as fuck, and the witchiness of the Camino is not openly recognized and acknowledged, and honored.
And by us researching it and walking it, we're hoping to create a pathway to that
for others.
One of the purposes of writing the book is to come up with a comprehensive source for this information that's written for a singular audience, or for
we're compiling resources that are meant for particular audiences.
Oh, like archaeologists or tourists, and combining it all together in a way that is accessible.
Perfect.
And there's been a a jump forward in time. It is now day 13, and we are currently walking, so you might hear some nature outside noises.
Or me gasping for breath.
But I thought now would be a good time for us to check in on the second phase of our walking.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a couple of weeks, hasn't it?
It has been a couple of weeks. So how's your body doing? Like, maybe you could just do a check-in about how you are doing, body,
Sure.
spirit, mind.
Yeah. So physically, things are better. I've been kind of doing some emotional, spiritual work on, if my body were a 5D body, how would it feel? And then trying to capture that. And some days it's worked. And some days my knees are like, we're not 5D, goddammit. Give us so whatever. But then I discovered the fact that if you just constantly keep the aspirin level consistent in your blood, that it covers a lot of things. So I may feel it when I get back home and I'm no longer taking aspirin 24/7. But right now I'm feeling good. What about you?
So I've been struggling physically. My feet hurt, my ankles hurt, my legs hurt from all the walking. And I've just reached a point like you where I figured out sleep, food, and pain reliever. And I will say we were advised by a doctor that since we're not injured, that taking the pain reliever is okay.
Yes.
Because I think you and I both, it's safe to say where we try to avoid
that, yes.
stuff like that
Sure.
back in our normal lives.
Yes. When we're not walking, 25 kilometers a day.
Exactly. But I would also say that the endurance, the mental and spiritual endurance of this has really been more challenging on me than I thought. I was not expecting to struggle, to be challenged so much. And I've been thinking about it, and this is something you and I have been talking about, because there's lots of time to talk between guests uphill. But it's a function of the experience that I have chosen, which is to walk every day, all day, on my body, regardless of the sleep and nutrition that I'm able to get. And it's very challenging and draining. And there has been some evenings where I've been crying and
or laughing hysterically, as I recall a couple of days ago.
Yes, hysterical is the correct laughing and then crying and not really knowing when what it is or when it's switched over. But it's just been very demanding in ways that I was not expecting. But that's not to say that it's not part of the journey, because it is. Yes, but it definitely has been challenging in ways that I was not prepared for.
I have to say, every time I climb this really steep hill, and I'm going to get to that little crest, and then I'm going to rest and see what's before me, and then I get to that little crest and realize it's about 10 meters of flat, and then another steep climb.
It goes up.
And I look again, and I think, and I just keep reminding myself, if it were easy, everyone would be doing it.
It's true.
And we did choose of all of the Caminos. Apparently, the Primitivo is the hardest one, which is why they devised all the other ones.
Right.
Other people said, "Fuck it, we're not doing that one."
Well, let's just do it. We're just going to do it.
Yeah.
What would you share? How you felt going, entering into Galicia, and then seeing the, for lack of a better word, witchy culture being around more?
Sure. Well, so yes, I see it a little bit more overtly, but I have to say, for this whole trip, I've been feeling it. So even in Asturias, in fact, we were talking about like a memorable moment, if I might be allowed to just to dive into that. For me, there's been tons and tons and tons of memorable moments, but they all kind of boil down to the same thing. Where I'm walking, usually I'm surrounded by green. Half the time, half of this second half of the trip, we've also been surrounded by mist or fog or clouds.
Yeah.
And everything is green. maybe slightly dripping. There's birds. The wind literally blows through me. And as it blows through me, I hear voices and I feel spirits and I feel presences. And it could be spirits from the past, future, I don't know. It could be peregrinos, people on the path. It could have been people who lived here, I'm not sure. But that has been that sensation of being a part of time in such a tangible way is a memorable moment for me. And it's kind of connected to that idea of feeling the spirituality. What about with you?
I do want to point out that as soon as you started sharing, we started walking up a steep hill.
Of course. Yes. So I'm going to be gasping soon. I think we go to our left.
I would say for me, it's a similar feeling. That it's been sacred the whole time. I did feel an energetic shift when we entered into Galicia, and I think you echoed that. And there's just been so many sacred moments. It is fun to see, the same way that in September and October, we see the culture embrace witchy things more, like there's more cauldrons around and stuff. I have seen that shift when we entered Galicia. There's more overtly like witchy things in stores and in windows. Even like a bell leading into one of the cafes was a witch. So
was it like a metal outline of a witch?
Yeah, it was a metal outline of a witch on a broom. So that's been fun. One of my favorite moments is also spiritual, and it was this little offshoot where I was able to go to a 3rd century temple, and it was really powerful to get to be in there. It was to Magna Mater, the Great Mother, and we also we're now we've changed from the woods to now we're walking roadside, so you may hear road noise. But it was just really powerful to get to be in that space. And there were carvings on the temple of women dancing naked, and just seeing this beautiful temple that's still standing and still present and still available for me to go into, and to stand before that altar was a really special moment for me.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine how powerful it is to see how, even though the Roman Catholic Church built their own stuff around it, that it still exists and people still recognize it.
Yes, literally the church, there's a church that was built on top of it. They put the door 180 degrees on the other side of the building and built a church on top of it, literally trying to erase the footprint of the temple. And in a lot of ways, it's been, if I give more grace, in a lot of ways, it's been really interesting to see that play out as we walk this, how the layering of another faith on top of it has been designed to augment how it's perceived. So what's another memory that you have?
Another is that in Lugo, where we have the most distinct, clear examples of Celtic traditions that were then kind of overlaid with Roman and then later Catholic traditions. I went to some of the archaeological sites, and I mean, I'm not going to try to describe them all, but the one I think that most impacted me was a fountain, a former fountain that they had uncovered, and the fountain was built on an older spring that had been worshipped. The spring itself had been worshipped. The spirit of the spring. So I guess, what are springs? Naiads? Yeah, I always get naiads and dryads mixed up. Anyway, so one of those, and it had been worshipped, and then the Romans came in and they built a fountain on top of that, on top of the spring, so that the water from the spring came out of their fountain. And they dedicated it to Isis and Ammon. And then the third goddess was a local goddess. So it might have been the spirit of the spring. We're not sure. And just, again, like you said, that kind of just layering the of all these different cultures. You have the original pagan aspect, and then the Romans coming in and putting theirs on top of it, and then it was apparently covered for millennia, and then just rediscovered just in the past, I don't know, 300, 400 years, maybe, maybe 200 or something. So that, for me, as a historian, was incredibly powerful.
I also love the idea of honoring the sacredness of that water, because it's like coming through the symbol of the divine.
Yes.
There's a part of me that really loves the practical, like we're just going to handle this by making the statue so that every moment it comes out. Buen camino. So that every time it comes out, it's running through this goddess.
Yes, exactly. Coming out of her mouth. Isis's mouth. From the mouth of Isis.
From the mouth of Isis into my mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
Into my pot to cook soup.
But even then, the Romans recognized that there was a spirit there. And left room for it. So, yeah.
I love that.
So what about for you? Oh, yeah, you were just saying. Never mind.
Another funny moment a moment that I had that I thought was kind of funny and really demonstrated the international nature of this trip is, and walking this with all these people from all these other countries, is there was a moment where, because of where we were staying, a woman that we met and I walked 6 kilometers farther than where we were staying, and then we taxied backwards to the place where we were staying, so that the next day we would taxi forward 6 kilometers and then start walking. And that's just the nature. That might sound a bit confusing, but that's just the nature of, sometimes we're so remote that there's not places to stay in certain areas. So that's why we were like moving around like that, which is not needed on like a main Camino like the Frances. But we were getting into the taxi, and the taxi driver spoke only Spanish, and the woman that I was with was German, but she spoke Spanish. So I asked her a question about the next morning in English. She turned to the taxi driver and spoke in Spanish. The Spanish taxi driver answered in Spanish to her, and then she turned to me to tell me what he said, but she spoke to me in German. And she's looking at me and speaking to me in German, and I'm like staring at her wide-eyed, and we're both exhausted because we've just walked like almost 30 kilometers down a mountainside. That was a zigzag day.
Yes.
Switchback day. And I looked at her and I was like, you just spoke to me in German. And she looked at me and was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, don't be sorry. You're the one speaking 3 languages at one time. I'm sorry that I don't speak Spanish or German fluently enough to understand what's going on. So it was just funny. And a really beautiful moment to me of like feeling that interconnectedness of people and countries, and also that I really should learn another language.
You can learn and speak. We can speak Spanish together.
Yeah. A fun fact: Galician is different too, right?
Okay. So let me just say that I'm barely, I can read a lot more Spanish than I can speak. And then we get to Galicia, and they have everything, usually in 2 languages. It's kind of like Quebec, but they have the Galician first. And if you're not aware of it, you're sitting there trying to read the Galician, and the Spanish is usually very, very small and very much at the bottom. And you're saying, what the hell? Why don't I understand this? And it's because it's kind of like a French Spanish, so yeah. But it's just enough to like really screw you over.
And I love that this place is so magical and so unique. And we talked about how it was insulated in a lot of ways from the rest of Spain for various reasons. And it shows up in the culture in so many beautiful ways. It also shows up in the language in ways that have challenged us. Just whenever we feel like we're getting it down, we are in Galicia and everything's different.
Exactly.
So I think, to summarize, we're still walking.
We're still walking. You can hear my trucking poles.
We're still walking. We're ups and downs, literally on the road.
Literally on the road.
Ups and downs emotionally, physically. but we're going to keep checking in.
Indeed. A welcome from a rooster.
Welcome from a rooster. Thanks so much for being with us on our journey, and we'll check in later with how we're doing.
Bye.
Welcome to our Witchy Wit check-in about us entering into Santiago de Compostela. We are recording as we have begun the second part of our journey to Finisterre, and it is raining.
As it's going to be for the next until we leave Finisterre.
Basically, yes.
Yeah, there's thunderstorms ahead too. But anyway,
all day, every day, rain.
We're doing this.
Rain, but that's a part of our journey, right?
A part of our journey. But speaking of our journey, so you've gotten to Santiago first.
I did.
Talk a little bit about what that felt like for you.
Yeah, so we started our day together. And then after we split in the morning, I continued walking. And I don't remember exactly how many kilometers it was.
It was I was going to say it was under 20. It was 20.
Yeah, it was like about 20-ish.
20-ish, yeah.
A little, maybe, yeah. Yeah, so just enough to make it a trek, but not very long compared to our other days. But I had read that the walk was interesting because we entered the city, but then it took a long time.
Almost an hour. To
get to the cathedral.
Yes.
So, and I'm just going to be honest. I struggle with patience. Patience is not my strong suit. So I was very set on getting there. And I did not appreciate that I felt like I should be there sooner than I was. but we had to walk through the maze of the city streets and then the maze of the downtown section. That was pretty.
The modern section.
Yeah, walk through the modern section and then down through the historical section, which was very maze-like to get there, and then it was just very concealed until I was standing right before it, and then it's like bam. But what was your experience like?
It's very similar. I knew someone had said that there's kind of like a false landing where you get to Santiago and there's welcome to Santiago, and you get all excited thinking, I made it. But I knew because I think I Apple mapped it or something, and that we were nowhere near there. But there's some really beautiful parks that you pass going in, and so I enjoyed that. And at that point, you had already gotten your Compostela and sent me a picture. So I knew it was doable. And I knew that I still had a chance to do it that day, that the crowds weren't going to be so bad. So that kept me motivated. Mm-hmm. And I just kept walking, like the song says. And then it was so sweet. You and another friend that we've made along the way came and met me so we could walk the last, kilometer together. Mm-hmm. And that was really wonderful. I really enjoyed that. So it was, again, Santiago is not a part of my spiritual path. So I don't think it had the excitement for me that it would for some other peregrinos. However, I bumped into at least 3 or 4 people that I had seen for the past week or so. And I thought that was fabulous. And people were hugging and kissing and taking pictures. And it was just, I thought it was magical.
Mm-hmm. There was a really cool energy in the, what would you call that? Like at the square or the
piazza?
The piazza, thank you. The piazza out in front of the church.
Uh-huh.
There were a lot of people laying down,
mm-hmm.
And just looking at the church, with their heads on their bags,
yes.
Or sitting with the people that they walked with,
uh-huh.
or just kind of standing there reflecting. And so it was this really neat holding area.
Yeah.
And I ran into a gentleman that you and I saw on our flight. And then,
right.
and then
at the beginning of our trip.
At the very beginning of our trip,
uh-huh.
We saw him on the flight. And then I had never seen him again. And then I saw him sitting in the square.
Oh,
and so that was kind of a neat bookend.
Yes.
I think it was a very powerful, important moment
uh-huh.
for me. But similar to what you said, I didn't have like a cathartic sort of experience, because for me, that's not the ending.
Yes.
Spiritually or like physically.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like it was the ending, but it did feel like a really powerful, cool checkpoint.
Yes. Yes. A very significant. I mean,
Significant. That's a good
in
one.
the name.
Yeah. It did feel like I agree. Yeah, it felt like a significant checkpoint, but I didn't. There were people. I saw people like crying, and I get that, but that just wasn't where I was.
Yeah. So like you said, it's not the real end of the way for us, because so much of what we've been focusing on has been the Celtic or the Neolithic roots of the Camino. And so the idea of Finisterre for me is like the Santiago for everybody else.
Yeah. I would just like twinkle fingers that and say I 100% agree. And like getting the little certificate thing was cool at Santiago, but that's just what it was. It was cool.
It was an acknowledgement.
Oh yeah.
An acknowledgement of, the shit that we went through.
But you're right. Like I think because of our investment in the history of the Camino, the prehistory before the Camino, I think the real that feeling that other people that I was witnessing other people feel, I predicted it'll happen at Finisterre for me.
Exactly. That's my thinking too.
And we're back for another check-in about our experiences after Santiago de Compostela. And we are currently at the airport in Santiago. So you may hear airport sounds.
And people sounds and all sorts of sounds. But this is a good place for us to kind of, I guess, sum up what our experience has been. Okay. So
maybe we could first talk about, we left Santiago de Compostela and we still had 4 more days of hiking to get to Finisterre.
Yeah, so let's talk about those days, shall we? So the first day, the weather report was just rain. And that was somewhat true, at least the first 3 days. The first day wasn't too bad, I don't think. The second day was hell-acious.
Yes.
Hell-A-C-us.
Us.
Okay. It was the sideways rain. So first of all, we had these little, so I was wearing, because I stay hot, so I was wearing like a short sleeve shirt, and I had my jacket on the back of my backpack just in case I needed it, and then we had ponchos that you happily supplied, just the clear plastic. They're basically garbage bags with arms and hoods. We had those. Within an hour, I was drenched. From where the poncho ends and everything just dripped down my pants legs, and then I guess crept up. I'm not quite sure how that happened. And then I guess through the neck, it dripped down on my shirt. So my shirt was soaked. Everything was soaked, and it was cold. And my hand, I literally stopped for coffee and a sandwich, and ate and drank, and it was only when I was getting ready to leave that I started to feel my hands again. I mean, it was miserable. And so it was so miserable that we were supposed to veer off the regular Camino to get to our hotel, and they gave us instructions for that. And you got to that point. Well, let me let you take over, because I just shared some of my experience, and I'd love to hear some of your experience, and then maybe you can take it past this point.
My experience was miserable.
Not hellacious?
It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. Like you said, horizontal rain. Wind so strong that I was lunging with my head bent just to try to literally push myself through the wind. I was being knocked around on the road while I was walking. again, I had the same experience as you, where my clothes got wet underneath the poncho because of like a wicking effect, where if you apply enough water
It's got to go somewhere.
on the outside parts, right, it wicks to the dry parts. And every hour that ticked by, my inside was getting colder and colder and wetter and wetter. So it was absolutely hellacious. And yes, I was keeping an eye out for the where we were supposed to find the turnoff and go on a complementario route to the regular route, and our directions were not super clear. And one of the problems is that they give you the town names, but some of the towns are so small they're not on maps because they're not really towns. They're like
two
houses and a chicken coop.
Yes, and a mailbox.
Yeah, and like we were going from like bigger towns to smaller towns to even smaller towns to towns so small that they didn't even have the metal signs issued by the government. It was just a piece of wood that someone had carved the town name in. So like we were getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and I was looking for this town that we were supposed to, after that town is when the turnoff was going to happen. And so that was frustrating, and stuff like that makes me anxious in general. But when it's raining and cold and I'm keeping tabs on my body temperature to make sure that I'm going to be able to make it, like even if I get soaked right now, then my clock starts ticking with how long I have. So I'm like trying to find this small town, the sign after the small town. So I'm on high alert is basically what I'm saying. So I did turn off and continued to walk. And there was this couple that I'd been leapfrogging with all day, and they were leapfrogging in front of me, and she asked if I was okay. I guess I didn't look okay, and I said I was fine. And then I was leapfrogging in front of them later on by this bar, but I decided to go into the bar to use the bathroom because on the Camino most of the time I just peed on the side of the road or on the side of the path. But dealing with more liquids while it was raining just did not sound appropriate.
Yeah.
So they were getting a taxi to the place where we were staying, and they offered me a taxi. And they were like, well, we're going to the same hotel. Would you like to just hop in our taxi? And I don't know if they could sense what I was feeling, but I had flames shooting out of my ears and out of my eyes, and I was just so upset at myself for saying no.
So you said, no, that's all right.
I said, no, thank you. I really appreciate the offer, but flames.
Meanwhile, your body's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, yes.
Get in the...
So I continued to keep walking. And then they drive past me in the taxi.
And they roll down the window, probably say, "Are you sure?" And you're sideways in the wind, going, "Yeah."
And I'm just like, I'm not here to judge them for taking a taxi. In fact, probably I have more judgment towards myself for not taking the taxi. So then I'm like persevering through bent body in the wind, horizontal rain. And then part of the directions was I was supposed to go through, they're like, you turn here and then you'll go down this path and then you'll go through wind turbines. And I read that, but I didn't realize until the moment that why are wind turbines placed a certain place? Because it's windy.
So it's windy enough to get a metal
thingy to go
the size of a plane.
So then I go up the hill to these wind turbines, and the wind gets even more intense. So I have my hands wrapped around my poncho because my poncho has now been ripped to shreds, and I'm holding it on my body, not as anything to stop the rain, but just as something to hold it heat because there's too much wind. So I'm wrapping things around me, and I'm lunging forward because I'm on the hill with freaking wind turbines. And I'm just screaming into this void of horizontal rain and wind that I'm not going to stop, that I'm just going to keep walking. Wow. So I did. So I walked 35.76 kilometers in the rain.
In shitty conditions.
Yes.
In super shitty conditions.
Which translates to 22.22 miles.
22.22 miles. 222222?
222222.
Magic.
Magic.
You made magic that day.
I didn't. It felt like something. So that was my experience. It was very horrible.
So mine was horrible, but quite not as horrible because I took the taxi.
And here I am.
Well,
I'm not in judgment. In fact,
I think you actually texted me and said,
I did text you.
You said, girl,
I did.
get the taxi.
I did. I did because.
So, you
why?
could suggest that to someone else.
Why?
There's some therapy involved in here that we don't need to.
I had come that far and I had made it that far. I wasn't going to stop now. And I'm not saying that's the right choice. I'm just saying that's my choice.
That was your choice, and I totally support you in that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You're amazing. You are amazing. You are amazing. Slightly insane, but amazing. That was, 22 miles in horrendous conditions. This is not like la 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 la. You running through the fields. This is like bent over, like your body literally parallel to the ground.
Yes. And I will say, the woman who offered me the taxi ride, her and her husband, they lead groups doing this. They've done it, I don't remember, like 5 or 10 times, whatever. They've been here many, many times. And right before she offered me the taxi, she said, I have never seen it this bad. And I just thought, shit.
This is the time for us to pick. Okay, good. It was. There's some stuff that happened in there for you, maybe that you haven't quite fully processed.
Yes.
But I think this is just me. I'm not in you, but this is. I'm into you though. But I think that there's some really powerful lessons and powerful takeaways from that experience that you might take advantage of eventually.
I do think you're right. I do think that I will process in the days and weeks, months to come for sure. Sure.
Yeah. So that was our second day in Santiago. And then we went out and you found like a farm supply or hardware store, and we got those heavy duty industrial green ponchos.
A size men's extra large.
Size men's extra large, which was apparently the best purchase we could have ever made.
Absolutely.
Because for €8 each, 16 euros altogether, we then ensured good weather for the rest of the trip.
We really did.
Because we got those babies, and I think there were some sprinkles or whatever, but so everyone else on the Camino that day, you're welcome.
You're welcome. No more rain, because rain was in the forecast. Thunderstorms
were in the forecast for the next couple of days. So then we get to. Do you want to talk more about the trip, or you want to talk about getting to Finisterre?
Yeah. So I think just to summarize, there's a lot of rain.
A lot of rain, a lot of wind.
And then the only other thing
a lot of cold.
Yeah, it was cold.
For people who think that the Camino's always hot.
Negatory. The only other thing I want to add about our trip, our 4-day trip to get to Finisterre, addition to rain, was that we are going to sea level.
Oh.
So there was a lot of up and down, but it was all up and down with the main part being down.
And it wasn't like, there were some gradual parts, don't get me wrong, but a lot of the down was just like, okay, you're here. We got to get you down there. Let's do this as quickly as possible.
Yes.
Oh, my knees.
Yeah, these paths were not ADA compliant.
They were not ADA compliant. Oh my gosh, my knee. Like, if you couldn't do it in a wheelchair. You could not have done it in a wheelchair.
No.
My knees were a wreck towards the end. I think I mentioned this last time, that I've been pretty much mainlining aspirin.
We always look at a map that shows elevation changes on the day before we go, and you showed me the elevation changes for our day going into Finisterre, and it was like up and down, kind of normal, and then all of a sudden it just it looked like somebody's heart flatlined, and it just like dropped all of a sudden.
Just like plunged.
Like absolutely like the steepest thing thing we've ever gone down.
I think so.
It was, it was impossible to walk down. Like we had to turn sideways and slowly inch down. And that wasn't like a mobility issue. It was just a
I mean, to safely put your foot down and be confident it wasn't going to roll out from under you because of the scree. We had to kind of do that.
Yeah, it was absolutely bananas. But then we got down to the bottom and we rounded a curve, and then there was the ocean.
Yeah, so we saw little hints of it with next to last stop, which was Say, spelled C-E-E. Let's not go there. And that was a little port town, a little fishing town. And then the next night was Finisterre, which I can say we didn't get the full flavor of it because it was gray and cold and early in the season, etc. But it seemed like it would be a nice place to spend a few days, wouldn't you say?
I would say so. And we didn't get I would say we didn't get like the tourist vibe from it because of the weather, but overcast, gray, cloudy. That it felt very witchy to me. It felt very magical.
So, shall we move into the magical part?
Yes.
So, I think people probably remember that we had some accoutrement. We had some yarn from one of our circle's rituals, which was pretty much based on Camino. I mean,
yes.
And we later burnt it with a great deal of effort
because wool is apparently really non-flammable, which we didn't realize.
That is the most non-flammable natural fiber that has ever been created. So after a great deal of ado,
great deal of effort,
we had ashes of that, and then we both had shells. We had our scallop shells. So a huge Christian tradition is to have like palm-sized scallop shells, and they have crosses painted on them in red, the majority of them, and then they might have other decorations, and people hang them from the back of their backpacks. We did not have that. We had smaller shells that we both found, and so we carried those in a little sack on our back, on our knapsacks, and I also had the pouch with our ashes, which for some reason I had in my head were wrapped in plastic and then in an envelope, but we're not. They were just in the envelope. So those days of rain,
were anointing our ashes.
That's right. I think we got it. So it was a little messier than I thought it was going to be, but hey. You know, that's life, and that's nature.
That is nature.
That is Mother Nature. So basically, what we did is we wanted to be there at sunset, and our thinking was that it was overcast. We wouldn't even see the sunset, but energetically we could be there. And can I just mention this? So one of the things that I remembered, I lived in Walla Walla for about 4 years, and it's a valley, and it would often in the winter have heavy cloud cover. But I just remember how we'd have really nice sunsets because in that little space of time when the sun drops below the cloud cover and then before it sets, you could see the sun and it's the gold, etc. And they shine like they would normally, but they also shine up against the clouds, right? So usually some really brilliant sunsets. So I mentioned it to Leilani, but I wasn't sure if we'd get that opportunity.
Oh, we got the opportunity.
We got the opportunity. Yeah.
So we had positioned ourselves like off of the beaten path, off to the side.
Totally off the beaten path.
Yes.
Like almost near like a dumpster.
Yeah,
for the restaurant.
Like literally like pretty far away from where other people would go.
Want to be.
Yes. And between some boulders.
Yeah.
And we sat there and we were waiting for the sun to set, and so we were just kind of enjoying it for a little bit and just understanding this concept of like where land, sea, and sky meet, and then the sun comes down and meets that spot, and it was cloudy, like you said, it was overcast, but then that moment of magic happened, like you said happened to you, and the sun starts to drop below the cloud line, but between the clouds and the water, and it just was like someone turned on a light switch and the whole area lit up, and it was spectacular.
Yeah, particularly because there were clouds lower than the sun on the horizon, and so when the sun's rays shone down on them, I could understand why people were thinking prehistoric people were thinking that there were other lands out there, because it literally looked like it could be trees or I don't know, ladders, or things going on in the clouds. Right?
Yeah, if I turned around, I could see the hills, the rolling hills behind me, and then if I turned the other way, it looked like the clouds were similarly shaped to those hills. I could see how they might think it was hills in another land, like in another universe, another way of existence.
Yeah, exactly. So we kind of exploited that, and we did like a little bit of a ritual. And apparently our energy is really strong, because even though we were behind this restaurant, between these boulders, minding our own business,
off of the path. Literally, there is no path where we were. There was no path.
Like at least two people.
At least two people.
People decided they needed to take a picture on the, by going through our little space and going past to another boulder. So I'm convinced this art, like they were probably standing there and they felt like this energy.
Yeah.
Because we cast sacred space and the whole bit, and it was just attractive. And so they felt, I think I'd get a better picture if I went over there. Something would improve in my life.
Something is calling me to go in this direction. But I probably below the level of consciousness. But they're just like pulled.
Yeah, they're just
like
pulled.
Moths to a flame.
And we're like, and I thought maybe I should get quiet, because I think I was invoking land, sea, and sky. And I started to get quiet, and I said, "Screw it! They're walking through my shit."
Right.
So yeah, I mean, but yeah. So that happened twice.
You did.
Yeah.
It did.
But they didn't bother us.
Yeah.
They took their pictures.
Other than their presence, they didn't bother us.
But you look at each other like, are you kidding me?
Are you serious?
There's like maybe 10 people total.
Yes.
Like 8 people in the parking lot and us 2.
Yes.
And all of that space, and that was the one place where they can get the best picture.
They really wanted to be over where we were, despite the fact that there was like a giant peninsula of land. They could go anywhere they wanted.
But whatever.
They needed to be within 3 yards of us.
Yeah, yes, exactly. But it was very gentle, very sweet. I could feel myself opening up. I felt like I got some messages. Between that and then the next morning. So yeah, I'm so we'll probably debrief a little bit more about our total experience with the Camino. But I feel as if like that one goal, that ability to sit at this place that had such magical impact for so many people, for so many millennia, and I'm sitting in there and doing magic. Yeah. I thought that was, nothing could touch that.
And knowing that so many people have done magic there for so long, and literally in our ritual we called to them and said, like, we are here, we remember you, you did these things. We are now here doing different things, but remembering and connected and tied to you through this type of practice. And like, we are honoring your memory through honoring our experience that is different from, but connected to yours. And I just thought it was really, really powerful. And also connecting ourselves back to our home circle and bringing those ashes and then spreading them there, knowing that they're now a part of this ecosystem of land, sea, and sky was really powerful for me.
Yeah, totally. And that was reinforced this morning. We actually went to the beach where theoretically people burn their shoes and stuff. I only saw 2 signs of any sort of burning.
Yeah, which is illegal. Like, you're not supposed to burn.
Yeah, you're not supposed to. So, but people apparently do it anyway. But we went there first thing this morning. We saw 2 other people. 3, it was wonderful. Just being. I'm so used to. I'm from New Jersey, so a beach is like an opportunity for you to lay there with 700 of your best friends, all smelling of like oil, frying in the sun. So to just walk along this beach in solitude was amazing.
It was really beautiful. And then I know that I had posted on our platform that our group uses, when we did that ritual, I had posted a picture of Finisterre, and I was standing there looking out at the picture that I had posted in real life of this land jutting out into the water and the rocks and the waves crashing and the ocean and the horizon, and it was just really, really powerful.
Yeah.
And I wanted to put my feet in the water. Side note, I have issues with sand. I have thoughts about sand. I have strong feelings about sand, but it was worth it. So we both took off our shoes. We walked down and put our feet in the water. And for me, it was a way of completing. It was we had officially walked to the 0.00 marker. I had gone farther than it and climbed down some rocks and sat for a while. But then for me, the touching the water was the completion. So we touched the church in Oviedo as the start. We touched Santiago as a midpoint, and then we touched the water at Finisterre.
Yes, and we got our Compostela, the certificate in Santiago that we had completed the Camino there, and then we got a similar one here in Finisterre called the Finisteriana. Again, a certificate that we completed the Camino from Santiago to Finisterre. And those are wonderful, and I'm going to have them framed, etc. But for me, that certificate, that living, breathing marker of the challenge met and the thing, doing the things, and making the connection and being there where land meets sea meets sky and communing with the spirits, that was really, last night and this morning. That's the picture that I will always carry.
And I think adding into that the spell that we wrote, that we put in our credencial on top of the Christian prayer, which I was not sure if I was going to actually get my Compostela because I pasted it on top.
What I did was I took the paper and I wrapped it around it and taped it so if need be I could slide it off. But no,
me,
Leilani, she commits. She's
I just
all
committed.
in it.
I just
all in it.
Pasted it on there.
And they didn't care.
They did not even. He didn't even look at it. I was wondering if they
looked at mine. Yeah,
they did. Okay, he didn't even look at it. He just. But anyways, reading that too in that space, and we had written about the elements, and going through each of the elements just felt so real. The only part that didn't was whenever we wrote about water, we had wrote about it quenching our thirst, and I think I was last night I was still jaded. I probably am this morning. That there should have been some mention of torrential
I know,
soaking me to the bone.
I was a little sensitive when we were talking about that. That is so totally not my experience.
Right. Although water did quench my thirst, because there were some days I did get a little sunburn on my arms. There were some days at the top of the mountain when the sun was very hot, and I was sweating, and it was very hot.
And I don't think I ever fully hydrated on this trip. So I was never. So in retrospect, it's probably appropriate, but I was thinking about the time when I'm and it was the same thing where I was getting ready to run out of water, and I was thinking, I'm absorbing gallons through my skin.
I call me a path peer. I peed on the side of the path so many times. Probably at least 2 to 4 times a day.
There you go. See,
that was my window.
See, you were fully hydrated.
I was fully hydrated.
Yeah, I didn't. So.
But the elements were with us.
The elements were.
They were with us during the steps of it. And you and I both went out of our way to hail and honor their sacredness, and I felt like they were with us at our ritual last night, and at the kind of at our little closing ritual today at the beach too.
I think
So thank you for coming with us as we talked about our experiences as we walked the path that's known as the Camino, but to us it was so much with that and more. Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope you have enjoyed the magic that has unfolded here at Witchy Wit.
It would be great if you would help make Witchy Wit possible and get access to exclusive content by donating on Patreon.
We'd love it if you join our Witchy community and enjoy shareable content on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Would you do us a big favor and support us by rating and reviewing us wherever you get your podcasts? It's free and helps witchy folks find us.
Feel free to email us at witchywitpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from our community. Reach out and let us know what's brewing in your cauldron.
New episodes are released every second and fourth Friday. Follow us on your favorite podcasting platform so our episodes go right to your playlist. You can listen as you ride your broom.
Stay witchy, y'all!